Jennifer Kesse, a 24-year-old finance professional from Orlando, Florida, disappeared on January 24, 2006, just days after returning from a vacation with her boyfriend. She spoke with loved ones the night before, but when she didn't show up for work the next morning, her absence immediately raised alarm among her family and employer. When Jennifer didn't arrive at work, her employer reached out to her family, who then made the 2-hour drive from their home to her Orlando condo. Upon arrival, they immediately noticed her car was missing. Inside, however, nothing appeared disturbed. In fact, it looked as though Jennifer had been in the middle of her usual morning routine. Clothes were laid out, and a damp towel suggested she had recently showered. Yet her car, purse, phone, keys, and iPod were all gone. After authorities were notified and an investigation into Jennifer's disappearance began, her car was found abandoned roughly a mile from her condo at a nearby apartment complex. Security footage from the area revealed an unidentified individual parking her vehicle and walking away. However, in an eerie coincidence, the person's face was perfectly obscured by a fence post in each frame, making identification impossible. When investigators examined the car, they found no usable forensic evidence. It appeared to have been completely wiped clean, suggesting that whoever was responsible had planned the crime carefully and likely understood how to avoid leaving traces behind. Unfortunately, the security cameras at Jennifer's condo complex were not yet fully installed, meaning there was no surveillance footage available from the property itself. This left investigators with virtually no leads, aside from one theory that has remained central to the case. At the time of Jennifer's disappearance, the condo complex was undergoing extensive renovations. Jennifer and several other female residents had previously voiced concerns about feeling unsafe around some of the construction workers due to the instances of catcalling and harassment. Following her disappearance, attempts to interview many of these workers proved difficult, as most spoke little to no English. One of the leading theories suggests that someone involved with the renovation crew may have played a role in Jennifer's disappearance, potentially connected to kidnapping or human trafficking. This suspicion was further strengthened by reports that the set of the building's master keys had gone missing shortly before she vanished, raising the possibility that her abductor knew where to find these master keys and could have entered her home without force. Other theories propose that Jennifer may have been the victim of a random act of violence, a planned disappearance orchestrated by someone close to her, or even an accidental death followed by a deliberate cover-up designed to make it look like she vanished. However, these ideas lack solid evidence and remain largely speculative. What makes the situation even more baffling is that investigators were reportedly unable to find anyone capable of overcoming the language barrier to properly interview the construction workers, many of whom spoke Spanish. It's hard to believe that in a city like Orlando there wasn't a single Spanish-speaking officer or investigator available to assist. This has led to growing suspicion that the authorities may not have put as much effort into the case as they should have. As of the latest update on October 21, 2025, investigators have reportedly uncovered previously untested DNA evidence connected to the case. The Florida Department of Law Enforcement also announced that they have identified several persons of interest in Jennifer's disappearance. With the assistance of artificial intelligence, authorities hope to enhance and analyze the existing surveillance footage in an effort to identify the suspect. Despite these developments, Jennifer's case remains unsolved as of this writing. On the night of March 31st, 2006, 27-year-old medical student Brian Randall Shaffer left his apartment in Columbus, Ohio, to celebrate the starting of spring break. He met his friend, Clint Florence, at the Ugly Tunas Luna, a bar in the campus Gateway district. Over the evening, Brian called his girlfriend and remarked how excited he was for their upcoming trip to Miami, a getaway he had long planned. Brian and his friend Clint visited several bars throughout the night. Eventually they returned to the Ugly Tuna, entering around 1:15 a.m., as captured by security cameras in the building. At approximately 1:55 a.m., Brian was seen on surveillance footage outside the bar, chatting briefly with two women. He then re-entered the building. After that, the trail goes cold. The bar closed shortly after, and when the crowd streamed out, Brian was absent. No camera ever recorded him leaving. Investigators first focused on the Ugly Tuna and the Gateway building's layout. The oddity was that the bar's only publicly accessible entrance and exit were under camera surveillance, and yet Brian never appeared to use them. However, there was a service door near where Brian was last seen. That door led into a hallway serving a construction zone in the building, which in turn had an emergency exit to the outside. Some officers believed Brian, possibly intoxicated, could have navigated that route. But the construction area was awkward, dimly lit, and not pedestrian friendly. Nonetheless, it remains a possibility. Authorities did run dogs through that corridor and surrounding areas, but found no conclusive scent trails tied to Brian. They also searched the city, checking hospitals, shelters, the nearby river, dumpsters, and abandoned lots. Over 100 interviews were conducted. They even followed a tip that Brian's phone pinged a tower nearby, but that lead fizzled as a probable glitch. Attention turned to Brian's friend, Clint. At first, he cooperated, but later his legal counsel advised him to refuse a polygraph test, which further fueled speculation. Despite decades of work, no body, no definitive trace, no confirming evidence has ever surfaced. Age progress photos have been released, tips continue trickling in, but the case remains open. Over the years, numerous theories have surfaced. Some believe that Brian may have chosen to vanish on his own, overwhelmed by the weight of academic pressure and the grief of losing his mother. Some believe Brian may have died in the construction area that night, his body lost or buried beneath the rubble before anyone could find it. Others suggest he somehow found another exit and met a stranger whose intentions turned deadly. Most people agree that after all these years it's unlikely he's still alive. Despite exhaustive searches and countless theories, not a single piece of conclusive evidence has ever been uncovered. In the absence of answers, all that remains is hope, faint but persistent, that Brian chose to disappear on his own, to leave behind his old life and the people who knew him. And yet, late at night, when the footage of that final moment plays, Brian stepping back into that bar, never to be seen again, one can't help but wonder, where did he go?